In the 6th century BC, the Neo-Babylonian Empire held an uncontested monopoly on global power. At its center was Nebuchadnezzar II, a ruler whose commands dictated life and death across the known world. He was a military strategist who cemented his legacy through architecture. He constructed massive walls and towers, like the Ishtar Gate, which used wealth and scale to signal his authority to anyone who approached his capital. This reign is not a matter of legend, but of historical record. Archaeologists have recovered thousands of cuneiform inscriptions and clay cylinders, bearing his exact name and royal seal. In 605 BC, Nebuchadnezzar conquered Jerusalem and deported Judah's brightest minds to serve in his court. Among these captives were Daniel and his 3 friends, who were given the Babylonian names Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. In this system, the king's word was the final law.
So the exiles living in the heart of the empire, any deviation from a royal decree was punishable by death. That absolute control was disrupted by a haunting dream, recorded in the 2nd chapter of the Book of Daniel. Nebuchadnezzar saw a colossal statue made of distinct layers, a head of gold, a chest of silver, thighs of bronze, and legs of iron. Daniel explained that while the head of gold represented Nebuchadnezzar, his kingdom would eventually be replaced by a series of successive inferior empires. The dream ended when an uncut stone struck the base of the statue, crushing the human empires into dust and growing to fill the earth. The interpretation was clear. Human power, no matter how vast, is inherently fragile and carries a divine expiration date. Initially, Nebuchadnezzar accepted Daniel's words, but his response in the following chapter was a physical attempt to override the future he had been shown. Instead of the multi-metal statue from his dream, he commissioned a real-world monument, a 90-foot rectangle plated entirely in solid gold. By making the entire structure gold, the king visually rejected the prophecy, declaring his kingdom and authority would remain absolute forever. He placed this monument on the plain of Dura. At this site, archaeologists have found the remains of a massive brick platform that likely served as the pedestal for the towering image. This gathering was a loyalty test. By commanding his officials to worship the image, Nebuchadnezzar used spiritual devotion to enforce national unity across his empire. The decree was simple. When the music plays, every official must bow to the image or be thrown into a blazing furnace. While the crowds around them complied, 3 Jewish exiles, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, remained standing. When confronted by the king, the men did not try to negotiate or defend their actions. Their refusal was completely blunt and unshakable. They stated that their God was able to deliver them, but they also declared that even if he chose not to, they would never serve the king's gods or worship the image. This non-transactional faith neutralizes the tyrant's authority. If a citizen does not fear death, the empire has no remaining leverage to control them. In a final act of force, the king ordered the furnace heated 7 times hotter than usual. The heat was so intense that it killed the elite guards who approached the opening to throw the 3 men inside. Yet, looking into the flames, Nebuchadnezzar saw the 3 men walking around, completely unharmed. The fire had only destroyed the ropes that bound them. The very tool intended for their destruction had become the means of their liberation. The king was stunned to see a 4th figure in the fire, a divine being he described as a son of the gods, standing directly beside them. This reveals that deliverance is not always about avoiding the fire. Instead of extinguishing the flames from a distance, God chose to step into the furnace to stand with his people. Consider a master craftsman who deliberately places a piece of rare, incredibly dense wood directly into a steady flame. The fire is not used to destroy the wood, but to temper it, hardening the surface and revealing the deep patterns of the grain. The heat does not create the wood's strength. It merely strips away the superficial layers to reveal the resilience that was already there. This story shows that while an empire can control a person's body, it cannot command their heart. The furnace only confirmed where Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego's allegiance already